Madam Mayor, we are live and recording. You can begin whenever you wish.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome, everyone, to our special council meeting for October 16th. The whole reason why we're meeting today is to receive the budget from staff. We'll have a number of staff coming in to visit us throughout the day to present their side of the budget. Before we dig in too deep, just remind everybody that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel. Please remember to use your microphone because the people in the land of YouTube won't be able to hear you. Council, as is always the case, please raise your hand if you want to speak on a matter, and I will acknowledge you at the appropriate time to speak. We'll just go through and call the roll. We've got Deputy Mayor Nelson. I said Deputy Mayor Watt. Councillor Watt, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Landsman, and of course myself, Mayor Heather Watson. I'm not going to introduce staff because I feel like at the appropriate time, staff will be coming in to introduce themselves. So we'll skip that for now as people will be floating in and out. So with quorum of council in attendance, I will call the meeting to order. The purpose of today's meeting, as I said, is to give council an opportunity to review the budget. No decisions are going to be made today specifically. We're just receiving the information. We'll begin with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. May we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. Moving along, of course, the agenda was circulated ahead of time. I didn't receive any disclosure of pecuniary interest, but if there is any, now would be the time to declare that. Is there any? Seeing nothing, just looking for an adoption of the agenda. Councillor Watt, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor, and that motion carries. And under delegations, petitions, and presentations, we'll begin with the presentation of the budget. And for that, we'll turn it over to our CAO, Todd Davis, to lead that discussion. And just a note, we will be taking a break around noon-ish for refreshments, but if we need to break before then, just signal and we'll find the appropriate time in the meeting to do that. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Watt, members of council, members of the public. I appreciate you all being here today. Martina, just give Martina a moment to bring up the budget presentation. Slide. Okay, so for today, I'm going to walk you through the first number of sections of the budget document or our budget presentation. The first area we'll go through is a bit of an introduction to the budget, to some background. I will also be presenting section 2, which is the impact on the levy, some key operational changes that we're proposing for this year, some discussion about the joint public works facility and reserves. And then we'll break into the individual departmental summaries. And at that point, members of each operating unit will begin to be providing their presentation portion of today. A couple of acknowledgements I just want to make of those people who will not be introduced or is now's an appropriate time to do so. I just want to recognize that today's clerk is Martina Chade-Harwig. We have with us to help answer some technical questions related to the budget our financial analyst Jijo Joshi, who's on the dais today. And then I'm also very pleased to introduce, you can't see that individual because they're in the back of the room, but they're here paying attention. Our new treasurer, Stacy Grenier, who started with us on Tuesday of this week. We felt it was maybe appropriate that we didn't make her, on her third day of work, present the draft budget to council and the public. So thank you. Next slide, please. Setting the budget each year is perhaps one of the most important roles that a council plays. It helps set our service standards for the next fiscal year and has an impact on all of our ratepayers and residents. I am pleased with what we've brought forward this year. I think staff have worked really hard, and I'd like to compliment all of the staff, not the ones that are in the room now, but all of the staff that have put in some time, effort, and energy on this budget. I think we came together, and I'm proud of what we're presenting to you today. And we'll get into that in a few more minutes. Really, this is part of a public process. This is the initial introduction phase. I will recognize that while today we're making um, we're presenting this budget to council and the public. It has been available online since last week. However, I also will recognize that next Tuesday at the October 21st meeting is a public meeting for the budget where the members of the public have the opportunity to come forward and speak to the individual budget and provide feedback to council, ask questions, etc. And then there's other parts of the process, and we'll get into those as we get into the time frame. In order for our budget to, and really, I think, when we look at how we came about to do this budget, in order to do budgeting in our community, one of the things that we look to is our strategic plan that was passed by this council in 2024, I believe. And it's that strategic plan is seated in a number of different things. First of all, it highlights our core values, which is fiscal responsibility, transparency, service excellence, and the environment. And then that breaks down into a series of strategic pillars. Those pillars, I'll remind you all again, and these are just really high-level reminders. And part of the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention today is I think that as we go through the budget today, these are the things that we reflected on as staff and took seriously when we were preparing our budget for you today and or what we're presenting to you today. And so I think it's incredibly important that we remind ourselves before we go through this process what the strategic pillars of this organization are. The strategic pillars are service modernization and innovation, business attraction, expansion and retention, and infrastructure renewal. In those individual pillars, there are a series of things that make up those pillars. I, as the CIO, report regularly to council through the committee of the whole process where we are and how we are in operationalizing some of that strategic plan. Over the next series of slides, I'm not going to go too deep on the individual elements that make up the various pillars regarding things like service modernization, recognizing that it's modernizing, refining, and innovating services for residents, that it's essential to effectively meet the needs of our community, enhance our operational efficiency, and ensure we remain adaptable in a rapidly changing world. What I will do before we move to the next slide, I just want to highlight and announce something that I think is very important. When we look at the service modernization and innovation, one of the things I want to draw to your attention today, which is actually not part of the budget, but I think it's important for the public to note, the number 2 element here is to update our website with a cleaner interface and easier access to information. And I'm pleased to say that yesterday, we launched our new website for the public, and I would encourage all members of the public, council, and anybody tuning into this video to go out and take a look at that interface. We're pleased with the outcome. I recognize that it's, as with all technology, when you launch it, we will be going through and ensuring that there may be a few glitches. We're so far so good, but I just sort of would remind the public that if you do encounter a challenge, please reach out to the municipality or the township, sorry, and we would be happy to make sure that that's working effectively. That is the strategic plan in action. Business attraction, expansion, and retention is vital for the economic health and sustainability of our township, such as job creation, increasing tax revenues, investing in innovation, maintaining our quality of life, and supporting community stability. And we have a series of elements that make up that pillar. Next slide. Infrastructure renewal is a critical investment in our township as it will ensure adherence to health and safety, economic development, investment attraction, environmental sustainability, quality of life, public confidence, and regional competitiveness. And these are the elements that make up infrastructure renewal. With that being said, let's get into the budget itself. I know that's why you're all here and what everybody wants to see. When we talk about the background to the budget, I think it builds upon the work that we've done and certainly the work of this organization over this term of council, and certainly some of the work that I oversaw in the last year and the budget we presented to you. As we move forward, I want to sort of take a look at some of the benefits of the investments that this council made last year, particularly in staff positions. Um, would note that, this created a series of different jobs within our organization. We have a corporate administrative assistant role that has been fulfilled. Deputy chief, that role has been fulfilled. And we converted a part-time Parks and Recreation employee which was effectively 2 part-time contracts into a full-time employee. And I believe that these small changes have given us some increased organizational capacity to meet some of the growing service demands that we have, and that these positions have already started to prove valuable. I'd also remind this council that if you feel like we've just been recently talking about the budget, it's because when for the 2025 budget, we actually started those proceedings in January of this year and concluded those in March. So it hasn't actually been a particularly long period of time between budgets. However, recognizing some organizational changes from a staffing perspective, realizing that we have a busy year next year and an election upcoming, staff wanted to get out in front of the budget this year. And so our intention, we're maybe a little earlier than we normally would be, but we're very happy to be here now so that we can set ourselves up for next year. Some of the other things I wanted to, there's a series of pressures, and we're going to talk about that. And some of the fiscal pressures that are facing the township is certainly in one area is around police services. I know that this matter was before council at the last council meeting. We had some correspondence from the Solicitor General that capped our annual increases at 11%, but that I just wanted to draw your attention that, and I know that we had some commentary from members of council related to policing in this community. An 11% increase as a maximum cap is in effect a 1.5% impact on our township levy. That's not small in this community. I'd also like to highlight some of the capital or look at forward to some of the major capital infrastructure programs and investments that we've been working towards over the last series of years and that are coming to fruition in the next year to year and a half. Most importantly, we're working diligently to bring forward some work on the joint fire station and public works facility in Warsaw. We're expected to hopefully be breaking ground next year, and we'll be providing a modern consolidated hub for these essential services in our community and certainly some infrastructure resources that are badly in need of renewal. And we're quite looking forward to moving that forward. I'm very pleased with where we are in that process, and I'm very pleased with where we're headed. And I'm confident that we will be building a building in 2027. The other major project, if you'll recall last year, a budget, and it certainly has been sort of a conversation of this year, we applied for and we were successful recipients of a grant from the province of Ontario to help renew our infrastructure at the Douro Community Center. That project has taken shape. Council put aside some dollars last year. We have some money in reserve for this activity, and we will be replacing the arena floor. That project is well underway. We're not replacing the floor actively, but we're doing the pre-work that's necessary, and we're confident to be breaking ground on that as of March 30th, 2026, with an intended completion date in time or in advance of the hockey season next year. Thirdly, I'd like to also highlight a couple of other pieces of infrastructure renewal that will be part of will be delivered in 2026. But were decided in 2024, and we're having 2 new fire trucks that council has supported we're due for delivery, and so that's the other major piece of infrastructure renewal that's coming to fruition at the end of this term of council. Next slide, please. When we developed the budget, and it's sort of as an overview, some of the things that we kept in mind or our focuses were to maintain. So the direction that staff was given while they were preparing the budget for this year, we wanted to maintain our current level of service. We wanted to advance critical capital projects And we had to recognize that there's some fiscal pressures that are being felt, not just in our community by our residents, but in our province and our country right now. And we need to be relatively sensitive to some of that. It certainly has led to consideration or concern about rising costs in some instances, but also a recognition about the ability of our community to pay. And so I think we've produced a pretty thoughtful budget that recognizes those issues and challenges as we move forward. We continue to face rising costs related to infrastructure renewal, legislative compliance, and service delivery. However, I believe that investments that we've made in past years around staffing and in asset management have given us a good head start on managing or meeting some of those challenges as we move forward into 2026 and beyond. The budget emphasizes prudent financial management while acknowledging a need for continued investment in both operations and capital infrastructure. And I think that's what we're delivering for you today. We're trying to balance immediate service needs with the overarching goal of maintaining both fiscal health and that we are well positioned for the future. And if I go back, or I don't want to go back in slide, but if the three major investments that we are making in infrastructure in 2026 related to a new joint building, fire trucks, and an arena floor, I think recognizes sort of foresight into the future and prudent financial management. Next slide, please. As all things, budgets are a process and they are a snapshot in time. This meeting is our first draft presentation today, as highlighted on the slide. We have a public meeting scheduled for this Tuesday where the public will have a chance to speak publicly to council about their feelings on the budget. I also would remind members of council and the public we have an open house opportunity on Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30, if I'm correct, Martina, in Town Hall here, which is an opportunity members of staff and council will be available to the public, and that I asked for that open house to be earlier this year than it was last year, in particular as it's related to the budget. So that people have an opportunity, if they can't make it to the public meeting or don't feel comfortable speaking publicly, they can come to that meeting as well and speak to members of council. Once we take all that feedback, we'll go back and do some more deliberation and work as staff. And then we plan to present our second draft budget and hopefully final second draft, budget to council with an opportunity for that's when council will have the opportunity to deliberate what we presented as our second draft. And then we hope to close this process in the middle of December with a final draft and passing of the budget and bylaws as required. Some of the next steps. So, some of the information, much of the information here, I think is current, or all of the information is current. But some of the information has a tendency to change. So a budget is always based on the information we have today, and we always have to make some assumption. Certain assumptions may change over time as we get better information and more feedback. And one of the things I would highlight is we recognize that there's an 11% cap on the OPP budget, and that's sort of when we get into sort of talking about what impact on the levy is and potential budgets. I would highlight, for example, the OPP have not given us their final costing for next year. We're a little bit early for that, but we anticipate it imminently, likely in advance of our second draft meeting of the budget. However, we have made an assumption related to policing this year that could change. That's just one of a series of things that have a tendency to change, but I just am highlighting that as an example. Next slide, please. Now we get into sort of the overall impact on the levy. So today's in further detail, when we get to our departmental summaries, you'll have a better look at sort of where we're spending all of our money. But what I will say is that operationally, we're proposing an operational budget in 2026. That's $4,441,694. That is a dollar increase of $208,224. Overall, from year to year, that's a 4.9% budget increase. And it has a tax impact of 2.8%. Our capital budget this year, we're bringing forward is flat. We've invested $1,309,973 or proposed in capital projects for 2026. And we've specifically kept those in line or in parity with what we offered in with the work that we did in 2025 effectively. I would also like to draw your attention. So from a totals perspective, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. What I also wanted to draw your attention to is we have a capital levy and have committed to a capital levy, I think, since 2022 in an effort to fund some the work on the joint public works and fire station, and that is actually in the lower set of numbers as a 1% increase. We'll talk about what that levy looks like if further on in this presentation, but I also want to draw that attention. That is also I wanted to sort of make you aware that we view that very much as part of our capital budget or contributions towards our capital budget every year. So it's not just 1,309,000. It's also a further 657,000 for the joint building that we're putting aside for capital. But in the actual operating tables and capital tables for this year, we are projecting assessment growth of 0.09%. And so when we balance 0.09% off our our levy impact, we're looking at a 1.9% increase presented by staff today on the pieces of the budget that we have control over, taking into account growth. There are areas that we don't have control or we have less control, maybe some influence, but less control. So as I spoke to earlier in my introduction, the police budget, we're projecting a police budget of $1,091,802, which would represent an 11% increase and a 1.5% impact on our levy. A library budget, Maggie will be here to speak to the library budget after I'm done the summary portion so that she can go open the library. But I think there's a 0.3% increase in a library budget of $190,269,000. And then this afternoon, we also are going to receive a presentation from Jeanette from Ontonabe Region Conservation Authority related to their proposed budget. But that we delivered that information from Orca late last week or the week prior. And their proposed levy for us or budget for us this year is $123,982 and a 0.1% increase in the budget. You had the 1% capital increase and our tax levy requirement for 2026 would be $7,815,084 or a 5.7% increase overall with a tax impact increase of 4.8%. Just as a reminder, the tax percent increase last year that council put forward was 6.37%. So we've delivered a budget that's substantially lower than last year's requests. What this has is recognizing percentages and numbers are challenging for residents to understand what that means. And so I really want to sort of highlight what that impact is per 100,000 on assessment. It's a $507 impact per 100,000. And the annual change as presented, if all things stayed the same, would be $23.12. Our median housing value in this community is $256,000, which would mean a real increase for the median property owner of about $60. I would caution you not to spend too much time worrying about that in this immediate moment, because as we work to a second draft, those numbers are most certainly going to change. But based on what we've got today or what we're presenting today, that's what we're putting forward to the members of the public and council. Next slide, please. I'm going to highlight a series of high-level operating changes over the next two slides. I will highlight a number of those changes. Some of them will have they have either corporate-wide impact or specific departmental adjustments. But perhaps before we get into that, are there any questions from council from what I've presented so far?
I'll just jump in with one really quickly. On the screen here, you're talking about the OMP funding, which was increased. Can you remind me and council again, and MPP Smith was at County Council just yesterday and announced $125,000 in OCIF funding for Douro-Dummer Township specifically, among other municipalities received funding. Is that $125,000 OCIF funding included in this year's budget? What are we looking at? Mr. Joshi, do you have
Okay.
that answer or?
I'll ask Gijo to answer that question if he's got it. I can speak to the OMF funding when we get there. I haven't presented this slide yet, but that's fine.
Through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding is that it's not included, but I do have to confirm.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave that for you too.
Okay, so if we get into this summary of key operating changes, you may have some questions when we get here. First and foremost, sort of corporate wide, one of the most significant changes as we have ever, and it's, I think, a pretty common change every year or significant change every year is salary and wage cost of living adjustment. You'll recall, or you may not, but I will remind you that as part of our employee compensation agreement, council has approved a salary grid increase as per the annual OMERS Pension Fund Index. OMERS uses the average of the Consumer Price Index for a 12-month period ending in October and compares it to the average for the same period the previous year. Our current CPI is 1.94%, which is what is reflected in the salary increase. I would also remind council that the compensation agreement is not necessarily just a static thing. It's something that is done every 4 years. That bylaw sunsets in September of 2026, and so some of the work for next year on our work plan will be to review the compensation for staff, senior staff, to review the compensation agreement and come back to council with what that looks like. However, I just wanted to sort of draw your attention to that's the area, probably our area of greatest increase, as it always is, related to human resources. Another significant increase we're seeing this year is in insurance, or we project a significant increase in insurance. All across the country, municipalities are continuing to see large increases in general liability insurance costs. We don't have a specific total. This will be another one that has, certainly as we go through this process, we'll get a clearer picture of what that looks like. But it's based on our recent trends, and we've estimated, so we're estimating an increase of $31,000 in insurance this year, which would be a 10% increase. I think we're being a little cautious. We're hopeful that we get a better rate than that, but that's the reality of 2025. And then OMF, and for those of you that don't know what that acronym means, it's Ontario Municipal Partnership Funds. These are funds that we receive from the province to help offset some of our operating. There's so that number is projected negatively on the impact of the levy because it is actually an increase in funding. So this is a good news story. We're going to get 21,000 more this year than we did in past years. And so I want to put it out there. It's always good to have some good news with some of the salt that comes with this stuff. So that's corporate wide. Those are the sort of 3 significant changes that we're seeing across the corporation. What I will do is now talk to some of the departmental specific adjustments. And in particular, I'm happy to do my best to answer any questions you have related to these ones. However, I will remind you the departmental managers will be in today, and we'll also have further information and be able to answer any further questions you may have related to these areas as they're doing their departmental summaries. Council and committees, so some of the adjustments we're allowing, so we have a $5,000 proposed increase for councils and committees and a $2,000 increase for events. What I will say about the $5,000 increase, it's to offset the projected costs for the orientation process for council post-election next year, sorry. And we've proposed a $2,000 increase to the event committee budget, recognizing, I think we've done some work with the reestablishing the event committees this year, and recognizing what our costs were for 2025 to host the municipal events that we do host, and a reminder what those events are Remembrance Day, Santa Claus Parade, Canada Day. I liked how everybody got nervous, so I would remember what the municipal events were. Some of the corporate services increases this year. So we're projecting some increased revenues in corporate services of $17,000. Those increases will likely are projected based on some of the recent actuals that we're seeing. So we're seeing some increased tax penalties, and provincial payment in lieu of taxes has also increased. So we're getting more money from the province than we anticipated, which is always a good thing. We are expecting $17,000 more. So that's another positive revenue piece for us. We're also proposing a $12,000 increase in some of our software costs. These are related to cost increases from some of the various softwares that we use, as well as our recognition that we need to enhance some of our cybersecurity functionality. Cybersecurity is probably one of the greatest threats we face as an organization, and certainly one that we want to make sure that we are prepared for, recognizing that some of other communities that have gone through some cybersecurity challenges, $12,000 increase to ensure that we're safer is a much cheaper expense than the cost of having to deal with it if we do get attacked or hacked. And that is actually more common in the municipal world today, or more prevalent than it's ever been. Next slide, please. Fire services. So there's 3 areas of fire services that I'm going to highlight today in terms of cost increases. We're proposing in this budget to transition the deputy chief's position that was established on a contract last year. We would like to see that become a full-time permanent role or a permanent appointment in the organization. What I would like to highlight is with specifically to the deputy chief and that position, we project a $25,715 impact to the levy. And what I would like to say to that is that that's a culmination of 2 actual things. When I highlighted earlier that we did our budget this year in January and passed the budget in March, when we did the contract for the deputy fire chief in the budget itself, we projected that we could only project that from April 1st on. So the $25,000 actually recognizes that the salary, there's a gap in or what we call salary gapping, or a gap in the salary. And so a significant portion of that, of those funds are to ensure that we would have enough funding to pay that rollout for an entire year. And then secondarily, the other thing that we ask to take into consideration when we transition a contract job into a full-time job is benefits. And those represent about $8,000 in that figure. That's the cost. That's the actual hard cost of transitioning that job from contract to a full-time position. That is I would like to highlight our only significant HR ask this year. We're not asking for any new positions in any other departments that are under the purview of me in the organization. And what we're simply asking for this year, or what we're asking for this year, is that we transition the deputy fire chief's position from part-time to full-time. We feel that having a deputy fire chief on board in our organization has been a very effective thing in the last 7 months, and that division is doing great things with more people. The other areas where we're seeing cost increases across fire services for 2026 are both in our paging contract and our dispatch service contract. Both of these, the paging contract, I think if you recall, has come through council in the past. I think it certainly hasn't come during my tenure here, but I believe it came in 2024. We knew that there was going to be some increase. We've moved to a new paging service. It is not simply unique to Douro-Dummer, but I believe across most of the townships in Peterborough County. We knew there was going to be some cost increase, and this is what this looks like this year. It's a $41,000 increase for our paging services. I also would say the contract increase for fire dispatch services is $8,523. That contract also has come forward to council, I think, for approval. We move to waste services. There's a $29,885 increase in the curbside collection cost. If you recall, so that's to do two things. That's partially due to our 2026 increase and partially due to the missing increase in the 2025 budget. The curbside collection contract came due at the end of June this year, and we brought forward to council at the beginning of June a new contract that we had negotiated with Waste Connections, as was requested of us by Peterborough County, as they are looking at curbside collection for the entirety of the county. I can't say what the outcome of the Peterborough County RFP process was. We haven't been given any information. I don't know what the future of curbside collection, waste collection services looks like in Douro-Dummer or Peterborough County. I can confidently say that we have retained the services of Waste Connections, as was requested of us, I think, to the end of 2027, to allow for a transitional period should that be necessary. Once we know the outcome from Peterborough County and County Council, we will be able to make an individual decision within Douro-Dummer as to how we want to move forward and whether what that looks like in the future. But this information was brought to council in June and agreed to that we would allow for, certainly we had enjoyed a number of years of low cost curbside collection. This is representative of rising costs and inflation from those organizations. There's increased, so in the public works sector division, our substantial operating change is in the area of increased vehicle and equipment repair costs. I can say some of those costs are related to increased costs related to annual vehicle inspections that are necessary. Those costs are going up across the province, and increased costs for repairs. The manager of Public Works, Jake Connon, will be here this afternoon, or late this morning, sorry. He would be happy to talk to any questions you may have to that. You can also ask them of me. I'm not sure I have the right answer, but happy to do. Parks and Recreation, we have some salary and wage adjustments and movement on the grid related to those roles, and some corrections to the 2025 rates. You will see specifically some adjustments that have been made between Parks, the Douro Community Center, and the Warsaw Community Center budgets, due to we want to better reflect the actual time spent in each of these tasks and in those facilities. So we've moved some of those salaries around to be reflective of where we're putting our efforts and energy, so that they're more sort of up to date with what's happening and not just assigned based on a formula. And finally, while it is a small figure, I recognize that 1,139, we were able to find $1,139 in efficiencies and savings across the corporation this year, which I appreciate as a small figure, but it's, I think, also a testament to the request that I made across all the departments that we sharpen our pencils, and where we could find $5, we found $5. And when you add the $5 together across the organization in various cost centers, you get sometimes small increases or small decreases, and that's what we're reflecting today. Total impact of the budget, a change to the budget, is $208,224, or 2.8% impact on the levy. Those are our key operating changes. Now may be a good time to break for some questions. If any members of council have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, we have Councillor Watt.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Just have one. The paging contract, 41,000. Is that what the total contract is, or is that the increase on top of what we already pay?
Through the mayor to Councillor Watts, that is the increase. That is not the total cost of the contract. I don't know exactly off the top of my head what the total cost of the contract is, but we can ask Chief Pedersen when he's here today. He will probably have a better understanding of what the total contract cost is. That is the increased cost for paging for 2026 per year.
Any other questions from council at this point? Oh, sorry, Councillor Johnson.
To the chair, when when we look at the deputy chief, now when we hired him under contract for the 1 year. Did we say it was non-mag, that he would be, were we going up and review that? I didn't know that it was an automatic that he would be full-time, without reviewing it.
Through the mayor, to Councillor Johnson, we're proposing that we were asking for him to be made into a full-time employee. We're happy to have the conversation with council. If the direction to council at the end of today is to go back and prepare a report to you reviewing that role prior to a second draft submission, we would be happy to do so. We're not assuming that he's going to become a full-time employee. I think that's that's our significant ask from an HR perspective this year, is that we convert that role from part-time to full-time. The chief is be happy to talk to it during his time as well. But certainly we're also happy to have a more robust conversation centered on that one topic prior to November.
Any other questions from council? Oh, no. I have one, just following along the lines here. So looking at the summary of key operating changes, just the percent, the 208,224 is the number at a 2.8%. So I'm looking at the summary on page, my document's not, page numbers rather. On the summary, we're showing the same number, 208,223, with a 1.9% impact. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at the right numbers, and maybe I'm not following the lines properly.
Back to the mayor. That's a good question. So what I would draw your attention to is so this represents a 2.8% increase. However, when we look at sort of overall, if you go back to that general slide that gives you sort of summary of changes to the levy, it's 1.9% because we are then there's a 0.9% benefit of assessment growth. So we take 2.8% and we take 0.9% because we're going to get we're projecting assessment growth of 0.9% this year. So the actual impact of our budgets after assessment growth is 1.9.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions from council? Carry on.
Sorry, I was just taking a breath. I'm going to talk a little bit about the joint public works and fire hall building now, which is this really when we get into this or we look at what the funding model is for the joint public works and fire hall, since 2022, council has allocated a portion of the levy towards the joint building. Every year this increases. We're increasing the reserve, the money that we're putting in reserve on an annual basis by 1%. And the projection is the whole goal is to get us to what we consider the magic number of an annual debenture payment of $914,537. That amount is based on what we anticipate the $12 million construction cost and a 20-year debenture at 4.4%. The way that the past treasurer described it is would be similar to issuing a bond. And so the goal is to increase our annual contribution to get us to $914,000 so that every year we're raising enough funds to make the necessary payment that we anticipate is going to happen. In 2025, council allocated $583,409 towards this project. The proposal for 2026 would be an allocation of $657,365 towards this project. We're expected to go through the site preparation process and the request for proposal / tendering process in 2026. Once that has been completed, we will be able to finalize our financing strategy. We are positive or have some positive feelings towards this project on a number of different fronts. I mean, certainly there's the rate of pace that we're moving towards getting there, but we're also looking sort of at interest rates. So when we started talking about this project in 24, in 25, interest rates had climbed significantly. They are now on the decline. In fact, they are down now to rates that were reflective in 2022 when we began planning financially for this project. So we're in a much better financial position from an interest rate perspective when we have to borrow, or we're feeling confident. We're also seeing construction costs are actually coming down right now. And so I think we are at a very good time to do this work, because we might be able to be closer to budget than we realize, as well as when we have to borrow, not have to borrow at a higher rate than we had anticipated in 2024. A 2026 construction date would mean that that project would be completed in either late 2027 or early 2028. We would arrange financing through Infrastructure Ontario, and we would expect a first debenture payment to be made in either late 27 or early 2028 calendar year. We project to get ourselves to the 914 figure by 2030. So that would mean that we would draw on reserves potentially for either in 27 if necessary, certainly 2028 and 2029 to help offset the differential between what we're pulling from the levy requirement and what we've got in reserves. By pushing this project out by a period of time, what it has allowed us to do is to build a healthy reserve for the project itself and for our infrastructure. And if the debt payments don't start until we get closer to the day where we're actually drawing enough money, we will end up with a healthy amount of money potentially in our reserve. And I think what former treasurer has highlighted here in particular is that because we have a later start to construction than we planned, and that our reserve has been growing every year through annual contribution, under all of the current assumptions that I've just outlaid, we will have a potential reserve of approximately $2.6 million when this project is completed, constructed, and when we have to make a decision about how and how much and what we're going to borrow. That $2.6 million could be used in a number of different ways. It could be used to lower the required debenture amount. The amount of money we actually have to borrow could be lower, which means our annual payment would be lower, could be lower. We could make up for any cost overages that we have. So we've built in some security and overage expenditure with the amount of money we put into reserves. And or we could generally transfer that money to our general reserve account that has been depleted in to some degree with the purchase of new fire trucks and arena floors, et cetera. And so that would help us to renew our infrastructure reserve funds. So there's lots of different choices. We're not asking for council to make any choice related to that today. I just wanted to draw that to your attention that by virtue of good financial management, we are in a strong position as we move forward with this project, and we may have some benefit when that comes to fruition, and a decision that needs to be made, which I think is a positive decision, as opposed to trying to find more money to do something. We may actually have some money to move it into whatever we want to move it into. That wraps up the sort of overview of the budget to date. Or a high-level overview of this year's budget presentation. We are going to move to the departmental summaries shortly. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have at this point.
Councillor
To
Johnson.
the chair, I got one more question to ask. Back X number of years ago, council was kind of told that they should maybe not always be in the black, and maybe they were preferable if they were in debt. Now, at that time, there was, I forget what was going to go on. It might have been the buying a gravel pit or something like that, that they looked at borrowing money. But do you know on paper, are we in debt with, any expenditure that any big expenditure that we did in the past? Do you know that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Johnson, not that I'm aware of, do we have any outstanding large infrastructure debt that we're currently carrying? I would certainly allow Mr. Josie if he has any awareness of any large infrastructure debt that we may be carrying.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of any debt like that.
I think it's I think to sort of round out that sort of comment on that question, Councillor Johnson. I think really what the story of the last series of years in this township has been is we've been preparing ourselves to take on debt to build the new public works fire station. So whatever debts we've had, we've paid, we've either paid down or paid out. We've ensured that we have enough money in reserve to buy things like fire trucks when it's necessary, new snow plows when they're necessary, replace arena floors when it's necessary, or we can take advantage of grant funding opportunities to do so. And we have, I would say if I look sort of at the overall financial health of our organization, we are in a good, strong financial position. We don't have a lot of debt or no debt at this particular moment. We recognize we're going to take on more debt in the future, but we also have healthy reserves. And I don't know a lot of communities or townships that can necessarily say that they don't have a lot of debt and have healthy reserves. And certainly we are one of those communities, which also positions us well for doing this kind of work and for whatever we might need to do in the future.
Yeah, to the chair. Well, I just know, I remember at the times, it was saying that we were being bypassed for grants because we were, look, on paper, too healthy. And they said that, and I remember Deputy Mayor Moher bringing to the table that maybe we should, take on something to make it not look so good. And, I just don't, when was the last few years, if anything was ever done, that's what I wondered. All right, thank you.
That point's well taken, and what I can say is that we may look very healthy today, and I'm not saying that we will be unhealthy tomorrow, but what I would suggest is that in not too distant future, we are going to build a $12 million building that's going to put us into some debt, and we're going to have to work our way out of that, and so we may be more susceptible to grants during that time period. Should that be the case? So we may not have debt today, but I don't want to tell you that, or I want to suggest that we will have debt by the end of 2027.
Any other questions of our CAO at this time, council? Okay, seeing nothing, is this the point in time where we're bringing our CEO librarian to the lectern? Maggie Pearson, come on up. And council, just for reference, it's section 3.7 in your budget book. We're not going in order necessarily on the book, just to maximize staff time and availability.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. You can go to the next slide, please. This is just a brief summary of library services provided by the Douro-Dummer Public Library. This hasn't changed much since last year, so I won't read through them all specifically. If anybody has any questions, of course, I'm here to answer them. We have our first up capital projects here. The first one, library building improvements, which my understanding comes from library capital reserves. This project is to address our strategic priority of improving space and accessibility and openness of space to accommodate increased programming and membership. So this involves the removal of a wall inside the library to increase visibility, accessibility, and space utilization. And again, supports the library's mission as outlined recently in the library's new strategic plan. And the second capital project comes from the public library operating grant to maintain the health of the library collection. All right, moving on to operating. The first, increase to library service hours. So this is to support the strategic priorities outlined in our new strategic plan, which would increase library open service hours by 3 per week. In particular, in evenings, when busy families and people working during the day would like to be able to access library services in the township. As everybody is aware, serving our population size of just over 7,000, we are aiming to increase operating hours from 26 to 29. So we currently have a total staff hours of 54.5. And we're asking for an operating budget increase to up that to 60. So that's a direct impact from staff hours of 5.5, equaling to 3 new service hours for the public. Next slide, please. This table is what the library board created together with myself, just to give an idea of what operating costs for hours over the next 4 years could look like. This is much less specifically set in stone, obviously. It's not a huge increase from 60 total staff hours. I believe it goes up to 64, but increases public open hours to 33. This is not what we're hoping to do this year. And this is also not even increasing, from an HR perspective, any of our staff to a full-time position. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of the operating budget that the board is bringing to council with that main single operating change. We did manage to make a reduction in our materials and supplies budget line, but otherwise, that's the main change in the first line there. I don't think there is another slide after that.
Okay, thank you. Unless, are you done yet?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't want to cut you off. Any questions from council on what our CEO librarian is bringing forward? Councilor Nelson, or Councilor Deputy Mayor Nelson? Uh-oh. Is it turned on? Like the side button?
Through the chair, thanks for the presentation, Maggie. Just a quick question I had is, do you know how much is in your reserves?
Thank you. Through the chair, I do not know specifically off the top of my head. I know that we have 2 separate reserves. One is operating and one is for capital. I could find that out fairly quickly what the number is, but I don't have it right now.
That's fine, Meg. Just on that, so the 15,000 for the renovations or whatever is, and that money is in reserves for that.
Through the chair, my understanding is that in particular, our capital reserve is healthy.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Meg. Maybe if you just can find, or if you can find it, Maggie, and let us know what that reserve
Yep.
number is, would be very, very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions of our CEO librarian? I'll ask one then. On the capital item for books and materials, that library operating grant, if I remember from my time on the library board, that is a provincial grant. That's not a grant that comes from the municipality or any other source, correct?
Correct.
So when we're looking at, and I believe that hasn't changed in a very long time. I know there's been a movement from, other libraries across the province to get that increased.
Correct.
That 14,000, I always kind of struggle with, and it has really no impact on our budget specifically, but understanding, one of the other conversations we've had with the library, this council has had with the library, is the lack of space and having to, I can't remember the word, but basically de-shelve books because you're purging, you're constantly purging books. How are you allocating that $14,000 in capital? Because it seems like there's such a volume of books that are having to be purged to make room for new books. Are you now investing more in some of those e-resources? Can that funding be used for e-resources? Or how are you making those decisions?
Thank you. That's a very good question. First, I will speak to our weeding process, which it is true that we struggle with space for our physical collection, and it is true that we weed on an annual basis. And that's standard practice for public library collections, and it's very important to do to maintain the health of the collection because there are a lot of items in the collection that just do not circulate and haven't for a very long time because they've been there for a long time. In terms of the 14,000 that we get every year, I typically, how I make those decisions, we do use some of that money for e-resources, for ebooks. The majority we use for physical items. We don't always use the entire 14,000. And what we don't use would go back into operating reserves.
Oh, I'm surprised at that.
I think.
I-
I can follow up with
Yeah,
Gijo about that.
I would be surprised if you could follow up on
Yeah,
that.
I
think
can.
that there's some sort of clawback, like the
Mhm.
province would want that money back if it's not spent for those resources, but
Okay.
that would be really, really interesting to know, actually. Looking onto the operating expenses that you've identified specifically, back one slide with the library budget impacts for future year planning. So just to understand the math here, you're looking at a projected in the future, if the funding permits to open for 33 hours, understanding there needs to be, overlapping in staff, and there's, overhead housing costs for those staff. Just trying to understand the current annual hours versus proposed. And how, and I haven't mapped out the proposed schedule, but it seems to be a considerable increase from 29. And I think you touched on this, going from being open 29 hours to being open 33 hours. We're looking at, another 150 plus hours of where we're at. Am I seeing that right?
Are you speaking about hours for staff or public operating hours?
Well, it comes down to staff hours, right? So in the previous table, what you're proposing for this year, there's an additional 156 hours needed to be open for 29 hours a week.
As opposed to 26.
So we're opening for 3 more hours a week, but needing another 156 hours in staffing? I'm looking at the very bottom line on that table.
Of this table.
So additional hours needed, 156 versus current versus proposed, 1352, 1508. I don't understand the like the math on
Mhm.
this.
So if you look at, it might be more helpful to look at the proposed schedule of the actual roles. So currently, our library assistant, we have budgeted for them to work 15 hours. And then currently, we have our second library assistant effectively budgeted to work for 14. And then over on the far right, the proposed would be down to 12 for the second library assistant and up to 19 for the first. And then I guess for 3.5 for myself. And I mean, those speak to, that increase speaks to the fact that like there is an increase in shift length to open for 8 hours a day instead of 5. I currently have staff scheduled to work 5-hour shifts, which means they get no break. Beginning to work 6 hours up to 8-hour shifts does include a 30-minute break or an hour-long break, which requires coverage from another staff member. It's also important to give about 4 hours to staff for every 20 hours they spend on desk or providing programming or services for prep time. And we usually get away with less than that, but that's sort of a minimum gold standard.
Okay, I think I understand that. Thank you. Any other questions from Councilor Johnston?
To the chair, I just want to know where you're looking at taking out a wall.
Mhm.
It's going to give you space.
Mhm.
Because usually you're taking a wall where you put stuff against the wall, all of a
Mhm.
sudden you got a
Mhm.
bigger room, but
Mhm.
that mean more shelving? Is that what you're looking at?
Through the chair, the wall we want to take down is in our nonfiction area, which is where we deliver a lot of our adult programming. And currently there is nothing on either side of that wall. The plan for taking it down means that we would be able to accommodate probably about 20 more seats for presentations in that area. And as long as we designed a wall that can open and close across it, we would still be able to maintain private program space or board meeting space when needed. So it's about increasing the flexibility of the space, but there is nothing on that wall right now.
Any other questions from council? Nope. All right, thank you very much. Seeing nothing further on that, moving down our agenda, we're going back over to corporate, which is section 3.1 of your budget document. And I'm assuming our CAO is starting with this, or who's kicking this off? I know it's a bit of a shared effort.
So to members of council, thanks, thanks, Mike. Two members of council. So as we traditionally do before we get into the departmental summaries, we're providing or presenting our org chart for 2025, which we're not, proposing to change. We're not in terms of additional roles. We're the only role that we've talked about so far today is the potential conversion of the deputy chief's role. But other than that, we have no other changes to the organizational structure, or have proposed no other changes at this time to the organizational structure. That just sort of gives you a overview of what our organization looks like and the different roles that are fulfilled within it. The corporate services division is made up of 3 different offices. There's the CAO's office, the clerk's department or legislative services, and the finance department. I will here's a high level overview of what the CAO's office does. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through it. I've done a lot of talking today and you're probably tired of my voice. I'll turn it over to Martina to talk about clerks.
Thank you. So as you can see on the slide, this is a summary of some of the work the clerks department does. I just want to highlight something new, or not quite new, but something that's become more prominent in our work plan, and that is marriage licenses and marriage ceremonies. It has become quite popular for us to issue licenses and then also to host ceremonies. So we've had a number of ceremonies out in the gazebo in the park, and then also in the town hall. And we do have additional bookings for more weddings coming up, running right up until Christmas. So that's been wonderful to see the community looking to us as a service provider. And it's also a good source of revenue for a department that typically doesn't generate much revenue. So we are looking forward to that. And we've had very good feedback from those couples and families that we've been working with. So that's been a really great bright spot in our year this year.
Here's an overview of what the finance department does. There isn't, I would suggest there isn't a substantial amount of new activity that is being introduced in the finance division generally, but I would suggest that they are substantially the backbone of our organization. They're the way that we collect money, pay bills, and maintain services. Next slide. So I'll highlight the first capital project, and then I'm going to turn this over to Martina for probably the balance. So the corporate IT requirements. So we spoke to specifically in the operational side a $12,000 increase for some of our software and cybersecurity requirements. I also will remind council annually over the last 2 years, and we're asking for a third year, that we invest $20,000 from the levy into corporate IT requirements. This is predominantly related to IT hardware replacements and a strategy aimed at maintaining a secure, reliable, efficient technological and computer environment in the organization. What I can say is sort of anecdotally, some of the work that we did in this past year related to this. One thing in particular, we have a series of computers that are aging out. They're no longer supported as of October 14th. No longer supported by the Windows 10 infrastructure. Microsoft Windows has announced that they are no longer supporting that. They sunset that operating platform. We have 8 computers in the organization that had operated on that platform, and all 8 had to be replaced in order to maintain the security, very basic security elements of those terminals. And so really that's what this represents in terms of investment, is making sure that we are investing in renewing some of the pieces of infrastructure that keep our data safe and allows us to continue to work. So 2026, we have phase 2 of some laptop replacements that we would like to do. We're prioritizing device age and condition. It also supports the renewal of core security systems, including update to our full-time direct monitoring so that we can enhance some cybersecurity and protect some of our municipal data infrastructure. Ongoing IT infrastructure is critical to reducing our downtime, improving our productivity, but also helps us meet our evolving digital security standards. If you have any questions on that one, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, Martina will take over the other 2. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I get the second one as well. I apologize. Second capital project, as you will recall, I put this is a for information item. This item has come forward, had come forward as a notice of motion this summer, and council actually approved a pre-budget amount of $40,000 in a report that I recently brought forward related to this. This is just this is us budgeting for the building services service delivery review.
This next project you see here is the records management software project. This is phase 2 of a 3-part project. We are currently in phase 1, and we're working through moving the clerk's office and Parks and Recreation department to our new system. It's based on Office 365, and it will fulfill many of the items that are listed in the strategic plan regarding our records management and ability to source and retain information for the township. Year 2, which is 2026, is going to see additional departments move to the new platform. I am not sure which departments are moving. Our new treasurer seems very interested in moving, so I may change my work plans a little bit, but we will see another segment of the corporate structure moving into this program. We've budgeted $25,000 for 2026. This year's program was covered by the modernization funding. So in 2026, it will be covered with council's approval by the township levy. I'm just going to increase this so you can see it better. One moment, please. Before you, you see the council operating budget. There is a small increase to this budget in materials and supplies, which is only $500, but looks like a large change because of that increase. But we do also see a decrease projected for council's insurance premiums. We also see a slight increase of $5,000 to the professional development and membership segment, and that is to allow sufficient funds for council orientation after the election. As this council may remember, in 2022, we hosted a series of workshops, some in conjunction with other townships in the county to save money and have ensure that all county council members and council members were receiving the same information. And then we also hosted in-house orientation sessions with guest speakers. So we're hoping to have a similar program in 2026 when the new council arrives. So we've allocated additional funds for that.
Here's the operating table for overall corporate services. This includes all wages for the CAO's office, the Corporate Services Division and Finance. What I would draw your attention to is a couple of changes I would like to note. One of those changes is the advertising and special events budget line is increased by $2,000 as we talked about during the overall changes to accommodate some of the actuals related to delivering those 3 special events. We also proposed a $12,200 increase for computer hardware and software. That's the software increase that we talked about related to increased subscription costs for some of our software licensing, as well as enhanced cybersecurity. We're proposing a $5,000 increase to contracted services. We're showing an almost $9,000 increase in insurance just for our division. And a healthy $7,000 increase for memberships and professional development that reflect some of the actuals related to memberships that were perhaps not captured prior to in 2025. What you will note is there's transfers into and out of reserves of $20,000. I believe that's to support the 2026 municipal election. That's separate. Sorry. That's $20,000 for, IT resources. We're showing a increase in funding for grants in the revenue section. An overall revenue increase. So we're showing an overall increase of expenses of $39,000, but an overall revenue increase through some of our grants and taxation of 38,000, which is showing generally a modest $491 increase overall for this division.
To the chair, that grant, how can you predict something like that? Like, is that going to be coming, or is it, you're just hoping that we'll get that 21% or the $21,000 more?
Through the mayor to Councillor Johnson, that is where we are showing the OMPF improvement. So I talked about when we talked overall, we were expecting or anticipating Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund increase of $21,000. That's where it's reflected in the budget. So we've heard from the government that that funding stream is going to be that. Mr. Josie, also, do you want to talk to the you had, I think, some further information because the mayor had asked about the other grant. Do you want to talk to that now? You had asked about OSIF. He's got some information for you, Mayor.
Through Mayor Watson, Mr. CEO is correct. The 21,000 is showing the OMPF allocation in the operational side of corporate services. Regarding the question that was asked during the summary of operating changes, the OCIF and CCBF are the two prominent funding that we use to allocate it to the capital side of projects, especially with the roads projects, which you will be able to see recorded funding as grants under in the last slide of the capital tables of this presentation.
Thank you for that. Where are we? We're still on questions. Any other questions from council? Nothing? Okay, thank you. From there, from here, we're still working on election. Is that over you, Madam Clerk? That's your wheelhouse. Go for it.
Thank you. The last slide I wish to present to council is the 2026 election budget. In this budget, we have allocated additional funds as per council direction to allow for paper ballots on the day of the election, along with tabulators to tabulate those results. We've also included additional costs for materials and supplies for those items. And we've also included additional training dollars, $6,500 for staff, as this will be a new process and we will need to be trained. And further to that, we will also need to have additional staff above and beyond what the clerk's department can provide, who will need to be trained as well. So they'll need accessibility training, election training, and a few other types, WMIS, all of that type of stuff, to join us to help with the election. So we have allocated those dollars here. You'll see also that contracted services has been increased. That is to allow for the election platform we use, plus the paper ballots, and all of the other services that come along with sending those out to the public. We have allocated an additional amount of funds. As we know, Canada Post has been going through some trials and tribulations. So we have put some money aside in case Canada Post service is not available. We can source other services to deliver the letters to our residents. That's all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions of our clerk on the election 2026 budget? Nope, seeing nothing. Then we are now moving on to Public Works. Mr. Condon, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you through the chair. So we got we're showing the summaries of the Public Works Department here. I'm not going to go through every one of them. We've kind of reviewed these in the past, but we do maintain over roughly 520 lane kilometers of township roads, bridges and culverts. We maintain these through all 4 seasons of the year. And yeah, there's quite a few different lists there in the list of summary. We have a wide array of things we do to maintain the road system. Next slide, please. Just before we get into this here, I'm just going to switch back to the summary of key operating changes where the CAO had mentioned some increases to our operating costs. One of them was in the vehicle and equipment repair costs. While we are making some large improvements with our fleet, updating our fleet, we do still have some an aging fleet, and with that comes increased costs for repairs and maintenance as well. The annual safety requirements has changed last year, effective last year, and we've seen a large increase in our safety inspection costs. These are an annual inspection that's a requirement, no matter whether they're a year old, the vehicles, or 10 years old. It's more of a detailed inspection, and it just costs the shops. It's more time for the shops, which then is passed down to the consumer. So that's where that increase is related to. So I just wanted to touch base on that. And if we jump into our public works brushing projects, this is now part of our operational costs. However, we do list a few projects every year that are over and above our operational. These will get a full brushing throughout the roadway. There's over 21 kilometers of road there. As well, we do have an allocation, as I mentioned, in our operating budget for needs throughout the year. And then we get into our capital projects. First one, the generators. During the last storm, we equipped our transfer station as well as our public works building with GeneraLink transfer switches. Those are a quick hookup right on the meter base. This then we realized that another issue that we had, that our generators were not sufficient enough to run. Number one, hook up to the GeneraLink hookup, and then as well to sufficiently run the facility. So that's what these 2 generators are for. One for the transfer station, and one for the public works building. Then we have culvert and structure inspections. These are required by OSIM, which is Ontario Structure Inspection Manual. These are a requirement every 2 years, and that's a requirement by a professional engineer that we contract out to have these inspections done. Next slide. Then we come into a little more detail on our gravel and surface treatment projects. On our gravel side of things, we have a little over 30 kilometers of roadways that we'll be applying gravel to this year, or next year, potentially. This is carrying on our 3 inches of gravel per every 5 years, as opposed to which we used to do was 6 inches every 10 years. So we're increasing or shortening the cycle time with the same amount of gravel. I will just touch on a couple of those higher level projects in the gravel. The 6th line of Douro-Dummer, we will be doing a road cut. We did see that in our roads tour. That's down by the gravel pit. That's a substantial amount there. Out of that road cut, we will be transferring some of that material back into our gravel pit to then crush for gravel that year. So that will benefit the township. We do have, Gilchrist Bay Road. We're gonna have gravel there. We also gonna do some extensive ditching on that road. Try to create some ditches where there isn't ditches, and we do see some extensive washouts on that road when we get some heavy rains. Douro first line from County Road 8 to Division Road, again gravel and spot ditch. First line Douro from Cedar Cross to County Road 4, that will get gravel and ditch. I should note the 6th line of Dummer will be brushed as well. It is in our brushing projects listed before, but that will receive brushing. And the Carlo line will be brushed as well. It's in our brushing list there. Then on to the surface treatment. Oh, I should note on these gravel ones as well, these are listed. There's a combination of roads need study projects in there, listed in our roads need study, as well as our own 10-year gravel and surface treatment cycles. Onto the surface treatment, Douro 5th line, those 2 sections, as well as the English line, South Bay, Douro 3rd line, and Old Highway 28 were all listed in the 2025 budget. We did push them off to 26. So you'll see, they're seeing them here now. Again, these are listed in our roads needs study as well to be completed in the next 1 to 5 years. English line, Mill Street, Water Street, West Street, Church Street, and Ford Street, all in the village of Warsaw. The county, Peterborough County is proposing to do a County Road 4 next year. We are trying to coordinate with them to have this completed at the same time, reduce some costs, and just have it all tied into one big project. Those streets I am recommending to do asphalt on and not surface treatment. Asphalt will last quite a bit longer. We won't have to look at asphalt potentially up to 15, 20 years from now. So it is going to be initial cost increase, but we will see that through the lifetime of the road. Other big project there is the Douro 4th line from County Road 4 to County Road 8. That would be right into past the school in the village of Douro. That would be a complete overhaul of the road, pulverized and double surface treatment, gravel and double surface treatment. Sure.
I'm going to the chair. Like, did that road that bad that we gotta do that? I think it's an awful lot of money, my God.
It is pretty bad up at the County Road 8 and as well down in the middle of the swamp there through the
Yeah.
where the cross culvert is. Once it gets out of shape, you can put a single layer over top of it, but you still don't have, you've lost the shape of the road, which then you've lost the drainage off of the water. So it is recommended that it gets an overhaul. Then we have Moody and Stenner, single surface treatment. The only two, like I say, there's some big projects there within the village of Warsaw, as well as the Douro 4th line and the Douro 5th line from County Road 8 south is approximately 700 meters of pulverized and gravel and surface treatment. And that's approximately 7.4 kilometers of surface treatment that would be rehabilitating. Next slide. So again, on the operating budget, we do see a slight increase in our advertising and special events. Every couple of years, we host a local road supervisors meeting, which is a lunch and a meeting. It's well attended and it's a good event. So that would be coming up in 26. We have a slight increase, excuse me, in our tools and equipment. We do want to make some additional purchases for shop equipment this year. That's where we see that increase. And then I did speak previously on the vehicle repairs and maintenance costs. And that is it for me, but if there's any questions, happy to try and answer.
Okay, council, I will turn it over to you, but just for a quick second for clarification on your surface treatment section here, Stenner Road from County Road 32, or is it County Road 29? Does Stenner touch County Road 32, Mr. Clonan?
Through the chair, no, it doesn't. That's a typo. Let me
Okay.
fix that. Thank
So
you.
it is County Road 29. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right section of
Thank
the
you.
map. Thank you very much. Okay, council, over to you for questions. I've got Councillor Johnson, or Councillor Watt, Councillor Johnston, Deputy Mayor Nelson. In that order. Go ahead, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Jake, thank you for this. Thanks to all the managers actually, and it's a lot of work to go through this. A lot of the stuff on the roads here, is there anything going on at the transfer station? We know the scales we know, but is there anything else going on up there that would be in these costs, or that over and above the costs that we've seen here so far?
Through the mayor to Councillor Watt, I'm going to take this one for Jacob for a little bit. I'll let him talk to the more if there's capital requirements that are up there. Certainly and I believe we'll be bringing a report forward to a very near future council meeting related to some significant changes coming as we transition away to producer responsibility in recycling. So we operate a recycling depot through the transfer station that is for Circular Materials Ontario, which is the business arm of the Producer Responsibility Group for Ontario, which is when the province sort of pushed back to the producers that they were responsible for dealing with their own materials. This sort of process we've been transitioning, I think, since the early 2024. In 2026, that sort of has come to fruition, and we're sort of figuring ourselves out. One of the things that we've come to learn this year, and we'll have a much larger conversation about that, this is that there are currently businesses that they classify as ICI, and those are institutional, industrial, and commercial businesses that are receiving recycling pickup currently through trucks that are operated by Circular Materials Ontario. We've been informed that there is no intention for that project or that process to continue into as of January 1st, 2026. We've also received some correspondence from that organization. So as an example, there will be some potential impacts to all of our facilities. For example, we put recycling out on the street here that will no longer be picked up. And so we have to find a way that we're going to deal with that. We received correspondence as late as October 1st that indicated that our transfer station, we are still able to receive residential recyclable material through the transfer station, in particular to service those people that don't have residential curbside services, predominantly if they live on an island or something like that in our community. Circular Materials has indicated that they will allow for the blending of ICI materials into at our transfer station. We potentially could still accept them, but what they're very clear to us about is that they will separate those materials out, or our proportional amount of those materials out that will be deemed as the responsibility of the township. And then it will be on our own to figure out how we deal with those, how we either figure out how to haul them, sort them, process them, whatever. And so there will be a more robust report. Well, not that much more robust. We'll have hopefully a more robust conversation about that. Because, and I say that because that is one of these things that we don't know exactly what the cost of how we're going to manage that, or what we will manage. And we will be seeking direction from council as to how you want us to move forward with that type of those types of challenges we may have at our own facility. So I can't tell you from a transfer station perspective, that is one thing that could have some impact, whether minor or significant. We don't know at this exact moment, but it's something that certainly we're keeping a close eye on, and we are coming to council to have a very specific conversation about that in the very near future, because it is going to be something that impacts us.
just speaking to that point, Deputy Mayor, because I know you're sitting on the waste management for the county. Yep.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on Todd's point there, the Waste Committee at the county level, we have been hammering the province about this. It's very unfair, and they don't even want a truck going by. Oh, sorry, you all right? They don't even want a truck going by to pick up the the people that are non-essential, like they're non-essential, but that non-qualifies, non-eligible to even stop and pick that recycling up. It's crazy. It's ludicrous. And we know it's ludicrous, but the province is not bending on it. And the minister actually said, you guys can figure it out. Basically, that was kind of more or less what it was. So we are anticipating some kickback or from business residents and from everybody involved on this. And what the answer is, I'm not really sure, but it's definitely a problem that we're going to have to be looking at as a council. So thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Watt, I know you had more question about
Just-
capital and the scale and such. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yes,
and that's fine. We did get an update, I think, the last council meeting about a scale and replacing and stuff like that, which is fine. I was just curious to whether there was anything over and above that, was maybe come up, whatever. But thank you to both for the answers on that. And yeah, it does sound crazy. If the trucks are going past the door, why would they not pick it up or want us to put another truck to pick just ours up and then go up the, 10 miles up the road to pick up another one? It doesn't make sense. But anyway, we'll deal with that when the report comes through. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So next up, I have Councillor Johnston and then Deputy Mayor Nelson with questions. So Mr. Cotton.
To the chair, a couple of things I want to ask was that these generators that you're getting now, they're to go on to the generator link that on the meter. So how are they going to, what's going to run them? Like, are they just going to be fed with putting gas in them, or how are you going to hook them up that they run?
Through the chair, yes, that's right. It's just a gas generator,
Just so
portable gas generator.
you just
Yep.
put gas in them.
Yep.
Okay. The other thing is, was there any, we talked at council about doing a project that we'd pick up brush maybe once a year, like in the spring or early summer, whatever. Was that, any thought to that, or did you, or even mention that you knew that we were looking at something like that? Like, I'm just wondering if there's going to be something put in the budget for that.
Through the chair, there was, I was aware of that, but there was no instruction or direction from, to myself to make that, put that in the budget.
Okay, well, might be something we might want to look at. And the other thing is, from the storm, the cost, did we ever come up with a figure on how much we're in the hole from that? Like from your budget from last year? Where you are with the extra time and material and everything that went on there? Does that put your budget from last year way in the hole, or where do we stand on that?
Through the chair, perhaps finance would be able to answer that, but I believe the reserves that we had in our budget were to compensate some of the stuff that was related to the storm.
CEO Davis.
I'm through the mayor to Councillor Johnson. So the costs associated with the ice storm are being funded in two various ways. So we're applying to the provincial government to the municipal ice storm assistance grant to offset the lion's share of the costs associated with the ice storm. There is a percentage that is our responsibility. We found a substantial amount of savings this year when we went out to market for the road for the surface treatment projects. And so the actual savings from the surface treatment projects helped to finance two things: the cost overrun related to the scale, but also the costs associated to the township related to the ice storm. So
Deputy Mayor Nelson, over to you.
Uh, Thank you, through the chair. Uh, Ray kind of took my thunder there on the generators, but I do have another follow-up on the generators. Um, th- This will run, the generators will run the fuel pumps for, during the emergency time for fire trucks and for our public work vehicles?
Through the chair, that's correct. That's one of the realizations we figured out when the current generator we have is not a 220 or 230 volt. So it would not run the fuel pumps, which then we had to borrow one from the fire department, which then put them down. So, and then we couldn't rent generators because they were very hard to find. So it was, yeah, this is just to fix some of those issues moving forward.
So further from that, Jake, even when we get our new building, or when we finally get our new building, that generator would still be needed to run them fuel pumps. Is that correct?
Through the chair, potentially that would be the case. I'm not sure how they're gonna wire the generator, the proposed generator for that facility, but regardless, we would keep one of these generators for the transfer station. The other one could be disposed of or depending on the model we get, we would keep that we do use a generator right on job sites from time to time to power our power tools and such. So it would still become a valuable piece of equipment for the department.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing nothing, I've got a few, Mr. Condon, specifically on the proposed capital projects. Looking at the 6-line South Dummer from Webster Road to the north limit, knowing that that's a substantial project and we're going to be able to reclaim some of that gravel resource that's in that hill that's being cut out, is the cost the true cost of the road, or are you factoring in the estimated value of the gravel resource that we're going to extract?
Through the chair, well, we are trying to, but it's unknown how much gravel we will actually get out of there. This is basically mostly for the roadway. There is a couple of hydro poles that need to be removed. They're an expensive item to have done. There is quite an amount of material to be moved from the road to the pit. So it is a time-consuming job, and there is some contingencies on here as well to compensate for some unknowns. But we haven't calculated in any gravel as of yet, just because it's not known how much we'll actually get from it.
Okay,
But
no, and
we should see that savings come crushing time, that we won't have to remove the material from the pit. It's already there, ready to go. So we should see that at a later date, that savings.
no, and that's fair. I know sometimes when we are presented with, say, a capital expense like the purchase of a piece of equipment, oftentimes the value of the trade-in or whatever piece of equipment it's replacing is factored into that. So I wasn't sure if you were using that same approach on this line, but it sounds like you're taking the gross cost, not the net after any savings or reclaimed.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Also, looking at the surface treatment roads, a little nervous about Douro Fourth Line, not for the reasons Councillor Johnston mentions, but specifically around the timing of that project, the impact of community events that happen, be it the Canada Day Parade down the Fourth Line specifically, or even around the Douro Doings and school zones. I know you're skilled at managing the timelines of those projects, but has any consideration been given to that? And secondly, more recently at County Council, Doug Sakosha had presented a report on school and community safety zones and different mitigation efforts that are being done in those zones. And he specifically referenced St. Joseph's School. It's not currently designated a community safety zone. And if there's any consideration for that once this project is done or in advance of that project, just to ensure safety of people in that stretch specifically?
Through the chair, I'll answer the first one there. We are, the road work there would be completed through the summer, which the school would be out at that time. We would try to do that project first, which would alleviate some of the issues. It's construction, there's always going to be delays, there's weather delays, so we can never guarantee anything, but we would work diligently to try and avoid any of that disruption. The second question is, just to speak on that, yes, I have been speaking with Doug on that. They have reached out to us because it is a township request to have it recognized as a community safety zone. So we will be requesting through the Public Works Department to have that area a community safety zone, which then will change speed limits, more signage, and so on to make it a safer area. So that is in the talks, and it will be completed hopefully next year. But there is not any additional costs out of operating costs for signage and such. So
Understood. Thank you. And lastly, you mentioned just in your general summary that council or that Public Works had made the shift from on gravel application from 3 inches over 5 years, where it was previously 6 inches over 10. When did that shift happen? I recall it happened. I just don't recall. Was it within the last 3 years, 5 years?
through the chair, I believe that was the previous council that made that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Any further questions from council? Councillor Johnston.
To the chair. The only other question I have you got a line there for signs? Cause I know there's some signs we gotta look at. So is there any money set aside for that? I'm just wondering.
Through the chair, that's all in our operational costs, any safety devices, which would be signs. I'm not sure what in particular you're speaking about, but that's all run through our operations.
CEO Davis.
Jake's responsible for roads, like speed signs, those types of safety operational signs. Are you speaking, just to get some clarification through the mayor to you, are you more speaking about, our informational signs while you're entering the hamlet of Douro, those types of signs? Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, basically, we talked about it and about some of these signs. The one that bothers me and has bothered me forever is coming into Douro. Like, we need a bigger sign there, and been pushed by the public for years. And I'm just, why I was asking is if we have a line in there for general purpose signs. That's my question.
Through the mayor to Councillor Johnson. So Richard describing as, I believe, wayfinding signage, that is not part of the operational lines of the Public Works Division. That is actually part of corporate services, perhaps. And I believe we do have some money in reserve for some signage. We are currently engaged with the Peterborough County because they have some reserve money for signage. I'm not sure they'll pay for Welcome to Douro signage, but they may pay for some. So we're just sort of looking at, we're looking at our entire signage situation. I appreciate and recognize that the signage there may not be the appropriate size or the size that the residents are looking for. We also have a series of signs that need to be replaced because they've either faded too deeply with the sun or they're in need of general repair and those types of things. So we have some work to do to understand what that looks like and what signs need to come forward, and then how we might start to finance the replacement of them.
Any other questions from council on the Public Works budget presentation? Seeing nothing further, thank you very much, Mr. Condon. And now we are going to move on to our fire department, fire and emergency services, Chief Pedersen. And we will have this presentation and then we'll take a recess for lunch, assuming council is comfortable with that and the progress that we're making. Good. Over to you, Chief. we're going to need you to speak into a microphone, please, so the people on the internet can hear you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so our first slide there is talking about the emergency services capital projects. A couple slides in, I guess, after the introduction. So we have pump 1 and 4. This is a project that it was 2 years ago that we ordered the trucks, or a year and a half. They're coming next year. So this is a pre-committed project. So the chassis have been paid for and the truck should be arriving next year. So this is just to finish off paying for those 2 pumpers. The bunker gear is, again, we're always replacing bunker gear every year, but we have 3 large years of the 10-year replacement program. So this is, we're in year 1, next year is year 2. We'll have a 3rd year of the large quantity of changeover. And then usually after that, it's just a few sets that are spaced out. But the 3 years are the big ones for impact to the budget. We have a minor equipment replacement that varies from year to year depending on our hose testing outcomes, replacing fire hose, gas monitors, nozzles that may break, or just minor equipment that we have that money available to replace that equipment when it's needed. So a few years ago, we put tablets in that links in with our apparatus for responding. It's part of our Who's Responding platform that we've been using for a few years. So the tablets are just getting to that age of where we need to start replacing them. They only take so many updates and then they start to get full. And so we're just going through that cycle of the first 5 that we put into service are these first 5 that we need to replace. So that's what that's about. Our AEDs, hard to believe that they're 20 years old, but they are. And we had 2 failures this year, not in service at a call, but we had part of the maintenance and self-checking. They came up and they couldn't be repaired. So those are just the point of replacing those units. So we feel like we can do that over a 2-year project. And then those will all be replaced. And then the number 6 there is actually part of the emergency management budget. So the last couple of years we have applied for emergency preparedness grant funding. We haven't been successful with that. So these are sort of the lessons learned from the last 2 major storms that we have had to deal with. So these are part of those things that we thought we could manage those type of events a little bit better. So we will be applying. The grant is open again this year, so we will be applying for that grant. So this could be something that is fully funded depending on the results. But we thought, we're 0 for 2, so we thought we should put part of this in the budget to at least put it in there in case we're 0 for 3 on the application side of things. It's open to more than municipalities, so it's a very broad grant, and there's a lot of applicants. So we've asked for feedback on the previous grants. There's nothing really wrong with our application. There's just so many requests. So the good news is that if you get the grant in year 1, you can't apply for it in year 2. So the pool is narrowing, so maybe we'll be successful. But that's in there as a potential if it doesn't get approved, that we would support that through our emergency management budget, and it's also coming from reserves. So there's no real impact there either. Yeah, so I guess I can't read that one, but I have it. I think it's just a small here in front of me. Okay. All right, so I guess some of the highlights of impacted changes. So on our wages that we're looking at, and I'm sure there'll be questions to this, I'll happily answer them, but so last year we brought a report moving our deputy chief from a volunteer part-time position to a one-year contract. So that contract was budgeted for from April to the end of the year. So we're looking at either seeing if council will bring that person on as a permanent position or consider doing another one-year contract. So the difference to the impact of the budget is that first quarter, because we didn't budget for that in the previous year. Obviously, if council decides to take that away totally, then there'll be a negative number that'll have to be calculated if we're not going to do anything with that position for 2026 other than fill it for it's a one-year contract, and I don't think he started till May. So we have to fulfill that one-year contract, but if council's wishes are not to continue with that, then that will be an adjustment that we have to make in that budget. But we're hoping there's lots of work, and I can tell you that reviewing his timesheets, there's probably at least a day and a half extra every week that he's doing work. So there's lots to do. Getting the certification done for him to be some of the master fire plan stuff with inspection. So he just recently, he hasn't received it officially from the province because that takes months, but he did successfully pass all of his certification for Fire Inspector 1, which is a bit of a process. So he's in a better position now to start working through some of those things. Our certification for training is our first date is coming up in June of 2026 for mandatory certification for a firefighter. So he's been helping in that capacity, running extra courses in the evenings and weekends. And we have our pump ops course that we just did a second learning contract with the fire marshal's office. So it's a busy and needed position to try to get us where we need to be. But if there's more questions about that, I'd be happy to discuss that further. Our dispatch agreement contract. So that's, I don't actually know what year we're in on that one right now. I think it's year 3, but I could be off by a year. So that's a contract that we have that's been signed by the township, and that's our dispatch agreement with Peterborough Fire Services for our dispatching of the fire department. The other big one is our paging contract. So last year in April, we brought a report to council. The contract was signed. So this was a big change. In the report, it talked about, a service that used to be used by many and now is really only being used by fire departments. The Task Communications, who was the one that was providing it, they closed their business. They're just allowing us to stay on some of their towers and stuff until we get switched over to the new Bell and Swiss phone paging system. So that's a big adjustment for sure, but it is a 5-year contract. There is no inflation on that, so I know the price is a lot more than we've paid in the past, but it is fixed for the 5 years. We don't know what technology may do between now and 5 years. As you can see, satellite is just starting to come out to support your cell phone. So who knows, that may be an option in the future, but we are committed to that paging program for 5 years. So that's what that cost is. And we haven't, we're supposed to have the changeover basically the end of September, early October. So they're in the final testing phase. We have the last testing to be done on Monday. And then we hope that it'll be handed over shortly. So that's the difference, is that we didn't fully budget for the system because we weren't getting it to the end of this year. But next year we'll have the full contract to fulfill. Again, there's 6 municipalities that are participating in this contract for the paging services throughout the county. we were able to reduce, a little bit of money in our, what we call the clothing line, but that's to do with our bunker gear certification, cleaning, that sort of thing. So the reason for that was because through the fire provincial grant that we got for cancer prevention, we were able to put in proper what's called ISP extractors for our gear. So that means that we can actually send them out once a year instead of twice a year. So that's a bit of a savings. And that was like they're up and running and implemented. And so that's why we're able to reduce a little bit of money there because we don't have to send everything out twice. It does cost a little bit more for the annual certification than just the cleaning, but that there is a savings there that we were able to find. So I think that highlights the biggest changes. If there's other things there that you want to talk about, I'd be happy to do that. Or if you have any questions about the capital or operating, I'm happy to entertain them.
Okay, Council, over to you. Thank you, Chief. Any questions of the Chief? Councillor Johnston, your hand's on the button. Over to you.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. The chainsaws. Now, do you keep a chainsaw on every fire truck?
Through the chair, yes, yes, we
Yeah.
do. We
You'd-
have,
You'd want to, you would never get to some of those places.
yeah. So part of that grant was that we found that during these emergencies, one at each station, or some have a couple, it's just not enough to help support. So these will kind of be in reserve, ready to be used for such a storm as this. But yes, we do.
And the green lights that the volunteer firemen have in the vehicles, is that something we provide?
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson, our association takes care of that. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess the one I was mentioned earlier was about the deputy chief. I know I said when we made that decision to do a 1-year contract, but I know you then and even now more than support the extra help to have a full-time deputy chief. And I guess at this stage, once again, I got to fall back on you, even though I don't need to hear you say how bad you need him, because I mean, you need him for the jobs he's doing. But it is a nice bit more money, but I guess it's sometime that they're probably at this stage ready to accept that, the full-time deputy chief. I'm sure that's your recommendation.
Your microphone, please.
Sorry, I'm one step behind. Yeah, we certainly have found things just seem to be, our call volumes are going up. Our roster has gone up. Vehicles, just there's a lot of things that are supplying more demands on us. And then that's not even taking into account the recommendations from the master fire plan and the community risk assessment. So I'm just finding I don't have the time to try to do all those things. So we certainly, and I know that we're only in a few months into his contract, but it's been a huge asset. I don't know how we did it before, to be honest. But there's always, I mean, the grants are great, but they do take energy and time and more administration work to pull that together, apply for them, and then implement them. The certification is something that the province has blessed us with, we'll say. So trying to get our department in the right position is certainly another big task. So I without a doubt, we definitely have more than enough work to keep him busy. And we have a lot of projects that we haven't even touched yet that we need to get moving on too. I know it's another big ask, but we certainly have. We've been trying to do this volunteer and part-time, for over 15 years. And I know that at some points we had, they could work up to 20 hours a week, but it was very difficult to find the person that could make that kind of time and also work as a full-time person in their regular job. So we have proven over the past 15 years, that's just not a very successful model. And so we're trying to pick up more and more of that. That can't be done. So I think we're at the point where we just need that help. So.
Counselor?
And the last question I have is that the bunker gear, now it's got to be replaced, called for from CSA. But is there any way, any market out there that for someone else to give us anything for the old stuff?
Through the chair to Councillor Johnson. So what we do is once a gear is 10 years old, it's no longer able to be used for an interior firefighter. So they can't go inside a building with it. So what we do is we keep that 10-year-old gear as spare gear. So if their suit has to go out for repairs or decontamination or recertification, then they have that suit. And obviously, we have some, because everyone isn't the same size and shape for every suit, but so we have some that are valid when they pull it off the shelf, if you will, that they're able to continue that level of service for us. And if not, then they have gear that they can use to do everything to support, but they wouldn't be able to go inside a fire. So we actually use that gear for 20 years. So after 20 years, there's pretty much not a lot of life left in it. And actually, we donate that to Firefighters Without Borders, and it gets sent to a third world country typically, and they use them in that capacity. So and we do that because there is no value. We either have to destroy them and recycle them into the garbage, or we donate them away. So that's kind of how we do. The 10-year has to be done for anybody that's an interior firefighter. And we do have some that are only exterior through the certification. So those ones we won't have to replace. So that's how we kind of manage that bunker gear, if that answers your question.
Any other questions of our fire chief on what's before you, council? I'll take a minute to ask a couple, Chief. Looking at I just lost it, the grant that you're hoping to get for the emergency response equipment needs. So right now you're factoring that in as an expense, and if we don't get the grant, you're still hoping that council will approve to move forward with that. And if we do get the grant, then that's exciting news. Is that how we're looking at that?
Yeah, to the chair, that's how the grant, I think I have this, there's so many grants, but I think I have this one straight. It's up to $50,000. So we had applied for more than this amount. So we will apply for more than this amount. But if we're not successful, this is what we're asking for, to try to help with at least boots on the grounds capacity for response. And that would come from our emergency management reserve.
Okay, so let's assume that we're moving forward with the items that are listed for, chainsaws, spare chains, PPE and such. Where in the budget do we see a cost for ownership of these items? Like the satellite remote internet, for example, I'm assuming there's a recurring monthly cost for that service. Is that built into the budget already, or is that coming from another line somewhere?
I'm getting good at that. Yeah, to the chair. So the internet part, all this is a one-time fixed cost, and obviously unless we use it. So the mobile satellite doesn't cost us anything until we turn it on, and then it's a month-by-month fee. So if we have that disaster where we lose cell phone service, internet, then we would pay for that month. So it shouldn't be a big impact to our ongoing budget unless we're, without those services for a long time. So that's kind of, most of these things are a one-time item. And then if there's maintenance on chainsaws that we use, then we'll just include that in part of our budget.
Okay, so do we have, I believe that we have employees who are operating chainsaws, whether they're volunteer firefighters or parks staff, public works, have to go through training. Are we assuming that they're all trained, or is there going to be an additional expense to train members who are interested, or how are we again, I'm just looking at the total cost of ownership. There's one thing with the capital side of it, but just
Yep.
kind of on the ongoing operating and making sure that we're able to maintain those expenses.
Yeah, so, to the mayor, we're not looking to add a level of service. We're like everybody on the fire department. It's a little bit different, from the fire department to say Public Works, because they're falling trees where we're clearing trees under an emergency. So the training level is a little bit different, from the certification side of things. So we're not looking, they're doing that job now. We're just supplying them. What's happening now is that they're all going home and getting their chainsaws and bringing them to help, with fire department activities. So this is just trying to get something that we can provide them and not wear out their own tools and chains and have that as a reserve so that they're readily available to go out and assist, whether it's assisting Public Works or, ourselves. So there's no additional, training or requirements, because we're still doing that job now. This is just extra resources to help put more hands on saws to help speed up the work.
Great, okay. Shifting gears slightly, looking on to your operating budget, and you have two lines for revenues. One is other revenues, the other one is permit revenue. And I'm seeing an increase in those revenues, on both lines. Let's start with the permit revenue, Chief. Are we looking at increasing the price of the $20 burn permits, or why are we seeing an increase in revenue on that? More uptake?
So I'm just trying to find that line here. So the short answer is no, we're not looking at increasing, any of the fire permit lines. We are seeing an increase in permits. So, that's part of it. And then some of the other ones are, just historical based on we changed our bylaw for automatic, alarms. So some of that is, seeing what we're happening mostly with Lakeville College School on the alarm response and the billing that we do there. So we're basically looking at the last 3 years and seeing what we're actually, getting for revenue and making that average. So it's reflective more of what we're actually doing, but our fees haven't changed, if that answers.
Yes, but it's going to open up a couple of others. So just to clarify, the other revenues are for effectively false alarms and fees that are being charged for that, where permit revenue presumably is exclusively the burn permits, whether it's farm, residential, or otherwise. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay. I fundamentally believe that having false alarm fees are important as a deterrent, and I would say reprimand, but for people who are not maintaining their security systems properly and they're signaling that. On the permit revenue side, however, I recall vaguely when this was brought forward, I believe under the last term of council, as a new program, the automated burn permit system, that the $20 fee was put in place as we think it's going to be this much money, but every time somebody phones in, that's when the true cost is of activating that permit to the municipality. Are we seeing that the actual cost, the bill that we're getting for maintaining that automated burn permit program, is it substantially less, the same, or more than what those permit revenues are? And do you have a sense of that?
I could bring back numbers for you to be solid, but we are, the system is, it does change depending, if we send out a notification for, this year we had burn bans, so that all those credits cost. So the side on when we push out notifications will vary depending on the year. And then, but as far as we're not losing money on this. So there's, I'd have to go back and look to see what the revenues look like. I think one of the things we could look at easily is the reserve. So typically we pay out of what we acquire through permit fees, then we buy credits, and then the balance goes into our emergency reserve for wildland type of equipment. So for example, we bought 3 forestry pumps because our other ones were from the 70s and were wore out. So we actually pulled the money from that wildland reserve that was a result of the permit fees. So it's making some money, but it's going back in to help with kind of the same type of response that is from a permitting, like from burning, basically. So we're definitely making some revenue on it. So our original estimates were based on others that were using it. And so that's what we based our number on, because that's kind of what the recommendation was. And that's what I would say that, yeah, we're not losing money on it, but it is going into a reserve. It's not, and it's being used for wildland type of equipment response, forestry hose, pumps, that sort of thing as it comes up. So we could, if you wanted, I could bring you back some numbers if you're looking at trying to reduce that cost. We could certainly look at what that would look like.
Yes, thank you, Chief, for that additional explanation. I think, like I say, as a break even and to manage the program, it makes sense to me, obviously having a little bit of reserves because of, year after year, we don't know how much revenue or expenses are going to be, but I would be interested in seeing what kind of reserves that we have garnered as a result of the permit program. And, and I understand putting that back into fire is good, but I think that ultimately, those permits should be on a break even. So I'd love to see what that looks like potentially, and then potentially look at a reduction in burn permit fee, because, well, I'll save my comments for later, but if you could get some information on that, I would appreciate it. The other question that I had, just have to find the line, going up to expenses on the same chart, Chief, on the fuel cost. I feel like, as consumers and users of fuel, we're all saying, gas is getting expensive, and I understand and recognize that. And I'm seeing roughly a 52% increase on your line for fuel. I don't know if this is more of a question for you or more of a question for Mr. Condon, because he came through at a 0% increase on fuel. So I don't know if we need to relook at those lines just to make sure that, we're being congruent. And I understand no, I don't understand. I was gonna say some are running versus idling time, but I don't know, if we're factoring in fuel increases in any department, one would think that they would be consistently applied across all departments, because we're all paying fuel at a same percentage increase, whether it's 10, 20, or 30, whatever that is. So unless yours has been significantly undervalued, then that's another conversation.
Sure, I will look into this. I know it's been something that we've discussed at budgets for the last couple of years. So I think the biggest impact is, if you look at the actuals, was allocation. So there was some backlog of allocation of applying what fuel was used to what trucks, and then we went through the upgrade of the fuel station. So there were some allocation issues, I think, historically, and they were trying to sort where that fuel was going, which vehicles they were going to. So I think that's where you'll see the numbers. We had a budget that was kind of the same for a long time, because we didn't really fully understand. It wasn't being allocated. They were catching up on that, if you will. So now that they've caught up on that, we're budgeting basically on what's reflective over actuals. So nothing has really changed from our operations. It's just, it was kind of a static backlog of trying to catch up and be allocated, so we actually knew what the amounts were.
The true costs.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Chuck, just a comment on the mutual aid agreements. I think they're great. I think they're very, very beneficial. Looks like this year we're minus 4,000, which I think is in our pocket. I think the minuses give us the money, and the pluses is what we pay out. But just in the last week and a half here, the mutual aid that Douro-Dummer assisted in the Lakefield fire, I mean, that makes it all worth it right there. And I want to thank you and your department for everything you did to help with that fire.
Through the chair to Councillor Watt, yeah, just thank you for that. We always try to help our neighbors in these types of events, and they're unfortunate. I just want to make one explanation. So the automatic aid is our agreements where, we supply service or we get service. So for the revenue side, obviously, we're supplying service to Autonomy South Monaghan. we supply service to Havelock, Belmont, Methuen in certain areas. So in our expense side, we also receive automatic aid from Asphodel Norwood, and we receive automatic aid from Havelock as well, and also from Selwyn. That's our biggest one. So those are where you'll see on the budget. When it comes to mutual aid, we have a Peterborough County City Mutual Aid Plan, and that's over and above, and that is a no-cost reciprocal agreement. So it's you help us, and we help you. There's no exchange of dollars. So where there's fees attached are in those protection agreements where the other departments automatically getting paid and doing our daily type of business. And that's where you'll see those revenues. So that's for any of those departments that are coming, they get paid the same time we get paid. When we get into the mutual aid stuff, that's been a long time history of it's a big event. We need extra help. And when we need it, they send it. And when they need it, we send it. But it's kind of a, we'll get it back eventually kind of agreement between us. So that's how the Peterborough County City Mutual Aid Plan has always worked. But I just wanted to explain it just so that you knew. But thank you.
Council, any further questions of our chief? Okay, seeing nothing further, I believe this would be an appropriate time to have a break. We have the Orca CEO coming in for 1 o'clock, and I believe that there is some sustenance and opportunity just to take a bit of a break for us as well. So we will do that, and then we'll be welcoming back Jeanette Levy-Smith for 1 o'clock, and then proceeding on with Parks, Building, and Corporate. Councillor Watt, motion to recess? Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor? Great, and we will